Hi all. Today we will try to understand the energy of Rahu in mundane astrology. Rahu is not a physical planet. There's no physical existence for this planet. It is considered to be the north node. You can see in my mobile screen there's a solar path and lunar path. So the intersection, there are two intersections here, right? You can observe. So one is the south node is called as Ketu and north node is called as Rahu. It's a shadow planet, you can say. People generally say it as a shadow planet. So there's no physical existence, but its impact is immensible. It has a lot of impact. And in mundane astrology, Rahu is considered as the worst Saturn. Means when Saturn is in its worst condition, it gives a lot of bad results, right? So such kind of results, the extremities you can expect from Rahu. So Rahu's energy is related with materialism, poisoning, war and violence, the destabilization, the financial destabilization, the negative practices related to religion, anti-social practices, perversion, cheating, theft, robbery, jealousy, corruption, the peaks of all this stuff, the violence also, the peaks of violence, peaks of attacks, peaks of death, graveyards can be associated with Rahu, tombs, caves, darkness, all the negative energy. So much of negative energy is related with Rahu. Accidents, fear of poisoning, the viral diseases, So whenever Rahu is transiting in a bad nakshatra, like the destructive nakshatras, like Arudra is one destructive, very destructive nakshatra. Arudra, Aslesha, Moola, and also you can say Arudra, Aslesha, Moola is also destructive. Even Jyeshtha is also destructive in nature. To an extent, Bharani is a bit, not completely. Bharani, has some negative energy associated. You don't associate these with the people in general, It's the energies of nakshatras I'm talking about, And the personal astrology is different, but this mundane astrology, especially the mundane astrology, you need to take it in a different dimension. Rahu is nothing but in a personal astrology. If Rahu is, Rahu represents materialistic nature, the too much of materialistic nature. So if you're too much materialistic, you will become very rich, right? Well, that is the good side of it in personal astrology. But we are talking about the mundane astrology. So Rahu is, it's completely negative. So much of negative energy is associated with Rahu. And whenever Rahu is transiting in a bad nakshatra like Arudra, Aslesha, Jyeshtha, Moola, right? So people generally expect some kind of negative things may happen because Rahu itself is negative and it's very destructive, very much destructive. It's poisonous also. Poisonous diseases, viral diseases like the pandemic that we're seeing now, COVID-19, right? So this kind of, the robbery, cheating, all the theft, all these things, so much of violence, the diseases, all these things you can relate them with Rahu only, right? So on the positive side, you can say Rahu gives some out of the box thinking, right? So that out of the box thinking is a bit the positive side of Rahu. In general, see, in scientific research, generally scientific research, all the stuff is related to Mercury, right? But even Rahu is also related to this kind of scientific research, but the innovations are impeccable. They're unexpected innovations. Out of the box thinking. You can relate that also with Rahu. But most of it is negative only. So generally, any mundane astrologist always observes the impact of Rahu, because Rahu and Ketu, these two are the prominent planets in mundane astrology. They are Ketu is the main cause of floods, earthquakes, tsunamis, where the natural calamities are represented by Ketu, and the viral diseases, even viral diseases to an extent you can relate them with Ketu, but they are mainly related to Rahu only. Ketu is mainly the natural calamities. I will discuss Ketu in another video, but you understood, right? Rahu is completely negative. There's so much of negative energy associated with Rahu. It's a malefic planet, basically malefic. um, it's the worst Saturn, you can say. At least Saturn is giving you some discipline to the countries. It is giving you some discipline, slowness. uh, it's a bit it leads to some constructiveness, even Saturn. But and even Saturn represents the lower GDP people, the lower masses, the labor, right? If they are happy, then the country would be ultimately happy. So Saturn is a bit it represents, if Saturn is very much happy, then you can at least think the people, the lower masses are happy, right? But Rahu, whenever it transits in some nakshatras, we discussed the Mula, Jyeshtha, and Aslesha, Arudra, especially Arudra means the destructiveness. It's the tears of Shiva, Lord Shiva, right? Tears. Some people say Arudra is nothing but Shiva. It's not Shiva. It's Shiva's tears, right? It's a destructive force, basically. So that is about Rahu. Rahu means the diseases, the viral diseases, the epidemics, the plague, the cancer, skin diseases, right? War and violence. The main feature of Rahu is war and violence, a financial instability, a destabilization, political destabilization, financial destabilization, industrial destabilization, all the negative practices of religions, the perversion, the cheating, the falsehood, whatever negative thing, the murderous tendency, deaths, the graveyards. You can represent graveyards with Rahu. The rebelliousness. The Rahu is something like it is something like air. The the expansion is also like air. The death rate is going to be increased a lot. Jupiter is nothing but prosperity, the population growth. Jupiter represents, whereas Saturn represents the population decrement, right? And whenever Rahu is there, Rahu is worst Saturn, so you can say the population decrement, the worst decrement of population, you can say. Graveyards you can represent with Rahu, the rebelliousness you can represent with Rahu, accidents, right? A fear of poisoning, so many, the snake, the venomous reptiles, the venomous reptiles you can represent with Rahu, right? So these are the effects of Rahu. So even though it is not a physical planet, it's just a shadow planet. It's a north node, basically, right? So that is So that is Rahu. So it basically it is similar to Saturn, but the extreme Saturn, the worst Saturn you can say, right? So it's the violence, basically the war and violence, the destabilization of political bodies, destabilization of financial activities, industrial activities, uh, the irreligious practices, all the robberies, the corruption. See, Saturn represents scams, no, the normal scams, but if Rahu, you can consider Rahu's energy as the biggest scams, right? World renowned scams, you can, right? But on the positive side, Rahu signifies intelligence, the out of the box thinking, the innovations, right? That is the positive side of Rahu. So if Rahu is very much stronger, then you can say as out of the box thinking, that leads to great innovations, because Rahu is associated with materialism, right? So materialism, so new innovations. So you can see the new things coming into the picture. So you don't see any car, flying, right? If Rahu is very much good, then you can see, okay, even a car can fly. People may think this way with Rahu's energy, right? So people may think, okay, we need new. It is materialistic in nature, right? People try to innovate new things. They want new things to happen. So even you can see buses flying, right? People may get this kind of thoughts with Rahu's energy, and ultimately they will succeed also. Even see, mass transfer is not possible till now, right? If a human being cannot transfer from one place to another place in seconds. But if Rahu's energy is if it is dominated, people may think why it's not possible, and let's try for that, and they may get success also. Even anything can possible with Rahu, the innovative energy, right? That is Rahu. That is the positive side of Rahu, but there's a lot of negative side as we discussed. Thank you.